text, but of course the point is well made, and except for the part where the Christmas tree does not represent Catholicism as he wrongly states, it represents paganism. So as a matter of fact, it's the winning not of paganism over Catholicism, but probably the reverse. But again, people can make up their own minds about things like that. The facts we're talking about here have been whistleblowed in several films. Hardcore by George C. Scott, Wolfen is a very, very important film to watch, and that's where the recorded, of course. And King Jack by Charles Bronson, Forbidden Subjects, very good film exposing pedophilia, and many other films that he's made also go into this. Again, these movies you have to find a balance. As people like Steven Seagal found out, if you don't do it in a sort of television way, you won't get your point across, and you won't even get the funding for the film. So of course you might have to plow through a lot of meaningless stuff, but within them can sometimes be very important whistleblowing elements in some of these films. Now another term that pertains to the Dionysian cult is cult of Venus. It's the same cult, it's just a different name. And that is because of the importance of the female symbolism in all of this. The role of women in general, and even of the concepts of femininity, play a large role in the solutions aspect of all of this. And it's because of that, and it's because of the inherent spiritual power of the female, particularly as you saw in the video of the Virgin, which is symbolized by the blondes or whatever. That's why it's perverted. That's why that's a part of the element, is because of the inherent connection to innocence and purity and spiritual power. And we know this is the case because the great masters, the great artists, the ones who also had a hermetic knowledge, they were practically obsessed with it. And I go into this very deeply, the symbolism that they used in the Tree of Life. Do you read it? Botticelli, his model, was in fact a physical lady called Simonetta Vespucci, who obsessed all the artists and was a great beauty at the time. So in fact, again, you see, it's not just an image in man's mind. Now, this is very much the case of John William Waterhouse and many of the pre-Raphaelite artists of the 19th century. They also had a physical, living, goddess type. Christina Rossetti or the famous models of the time, Elizabeth Siddal and Jane Morris and so on. So there's often a physical, stereotypical person as well as the symbolism that pertains to that model. On a higher level, it's not something that's also limited to Greece. When we say Venus, people might think, oh, you're talking Greece. This is a concept that David Icke has also shown that goes further back in time. The study of the feminine, going back to Lilith, going back to many, many different goddesses, going back to Ishtar, Cybele, and so on. Here's the god Aphrodite, here you see with the serpent. Important Phoenician deity. And also Diana Lucifera. Is Diana Lucifera. I just showed earlier this picture. And that's what you're actually seeing, is Diana Lucifera, a very important goddess to the cultists. Here she is again, holding the torch. And this feminine symbolism will turn up in the corporate world. I mean, you might have noticed by now just how important the feminine, the female body is, and the symbolism of female is in corporate advertising. It also turns up in areas of music. Venus does, and it can either be the location, Venice. There's a tie-in there because Venice is actually named after Venus. And don't forget that we talked about groups that are lower down the power pyramid. Well, let's go back up to the highest levels of the pyramid, and then you have a group known as the Black Venetians, or the Black Nobility, of which the Queen of England is one of the groups. And many of the Habsburgs and Hanoverian dynasties, people, including the royal families of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, by the way, are part of this Black Nobility. Maybe not the highest strata, but they're certainly part of it. And this is brought out for those who are very interested in following this thread by Jeffrey Steinberg, Webster Tarpley, and then LaRouche, John Coleman, the Dope Incorporated crowd. Again, I can be contacted for information. Go to my links, go to the forum, you'll find information on this. Specifically, I noticed, back as I said, I started studying this stuff back in the 80s, and noticed how many rock videos, pop videos, and Madonna's first video, Like a Virgin, being set in Venice is not by accident. It's not just a hot location. There's lots of hot locations in the world. Why there? And it's because of ritual symbolism, ritual elements. The blonde female wearing the religious regalia, the religious symbolism. What's really going on? Well, in one thing about Venice is that is where all the young men in the 1500s and the medieval times, Venice was where you sent all the young Jews and the princes, and the young men to basically lose their virginity and be initiated into manhood in an orgiastic way. They still have this thing called the Carnival of Venus, which is the day before Ash Wednesday, which falls under Aquarius Pisces. That's important for astrological reasons. And the word carnival means to lift the flesh. It's again part of this whole Dionysian orgiastic rites and cults that they had going on. And it's a bit of a tourist attraction now, of course, but behind it is something a lot more sinister regarding initiation, sexual rites and practices. And again, this particular aspect of the ritual has been whistleblown in many films, particularly in the work of Federico Fellini, another guy who thinks he's a film director. And by Peter Greenaway, who is a film director. Again, I'm just making jokes here, but obviously if you study their films with an educated eye, Crossroads, Brooks, The Glass Man's Contract, you'll start seeing these Dionysian elements, because these, in my opinion, are initiates of this Dionysian cult. Again, as I said, you don't necessarily take my word for that. Oh yeah, one classic franchise is the James Bond movies. I've often listed about, in my mind, there's like 4 of them, at least, that are absolutely the future events, and many other symbols of the Venetians. Moonraker does. Because don't forget, in those movies, you always have these weird, bizarre anti-hero types. And the symbolism surrounding them is particularly interesting. Super wealthy oligarchs. If you remember the movie The Spy Who Loved Me, the super wealthy oligarch in that film actually lived on an undersea domicile that he called Atlantis. The whole Atlantis symbolism came up there. And in fact, I'd love to be able to have the time to take you through it scene by scene in that film to show you just what they look like and how brilliant it is. But the interesting thing from what Jordan Maxwell has always brought up is that the character is actually dressed in a long black robe, sitting in a Venetian drawing room. In exactly the same way as you might see in the Medicis, with all of this Botticelli artwork all around it, in a place called Atlantis. I mean, it's incredible. And then you often see the character, he actually has webbed hands, by the way. You find he's a hybrid character, and then you often see him behind the checkerboard. He's actually touching the film when you see the black and white checkerboard. Yeah, there's the makeshift submerged domicile in which this person resides, known as Atlantis. A lot of whistleblowing goes on. Now, of course, the famous one is there's criminal syndicate, specters. And the group that plays one side against the other, their symbol there on the signet ring is the octopus. And this term, octopus, turned up again in one of the James Bond movies, Octopussy, which is very interesting from a symbolic point of view, because anybody who knows this movie, what does it show? It shows literally a ritualistic cult of women being groomed to be literally high-class prostitutes, specially trained. And they situated in the East as well, which is kind of interesting. But even in the West, now there are questions about the Playboy and the penthouse groups. Who are they connected to? What does the term mansion and penthouse refer to, you see? Who's running these groups? Not just those magazines, but so many other media outlets. This particular Venusian symbolism is just random. This is, you saw Venus rising out of the shell as Botticelli and others have painted her. Well, here you have it again in a different form, but it's particularly Venusian. And just, again, as we said, the permeation of the occult symbolism appearing religious. But it's much more than that. You know, Jesus wore the crown of thorns. He was a man. So if you change the symbolism of a woman, that's significant. It means something. It's not particularly religious. Neither is this. So as we said when we